Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1223B, and today's date is March 8th, 2017, and the title of the episode is, The Government Allows You to Think You're Free? Is the government the enemy of freedom? Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with Jim Willey. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you have to do is go to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you to the video. It will bring you to the channel. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to the right-hand side. You'll see the video there. Or go to newssentinel.com. Same thing. Scroll down, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the video there. We talk about a lot of things. One of them is how the U.S. is going to be forced to take a domestic dollar, which is going to be devalued. And that's when he says the crisis is going to begin. So if you have some time, go on over to either the X22Report.com website or go to the Spotlight channel and listen to what he has to say. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, since Trump tweeted out that Obama was in charge of ordering a wiretap on Trump Tower and spying on him before the elections, we can see that the corporate media, they're out there saying this is absolutely ridiculous. There's no proof. There's nothing there. And we know that Obama went to the FISA court multiple times and tried to get this order. So Senator Graham and Senator Whitehouse, they're requesting the warrant application and court order related to the possible wiretapping of Trump and his Trump campaign or Trump Tower. And they're saying that we request that the Department of Justice provide us copies of any warrant application and court orders redacted as necessary to protect intelligence sources and methods that may be compromised by disclosure, and to protect any ongoing investigations related to wiretaps of President Trump. And these senators want some proof to show that this actually happened. Now, we have to realize what's going on here. They want to see the actual paperwork. Now, will the FBI and the agencies hand this over? Well, if they do hand it over, it implicates them into spying on an American citizen who is running to be president of the United States. And they're going to have to look at the wording of the warrant to find out what was the purpose and who actually initiated all of this. And this is going to be a major problem. So, are we going to see this proof? We'll have to wait and see. And if we do, this is going to be a problem. Now, does Trump actually have the paperwork? I would say that he must have seen the paperwork, or he must have the paperwork, because, like I said in past reports, if he cannot prove this, if he cannot support what he's saying, the corporate media, the deep state, they're going to be calling him a liar, and no one will believe him from this point on. So, most likely, he must have seen the paperwork. Most likely, he has the proof. And we know from all other information that's coming in that there is a paper trail. Now, we know that WikiLeaks, they pushed out this thing called Vault 7. And they showed that the CIA was spying on everyone, pretty much, because they were using devices. Android phone, iPhone, Samsung TV. They were able to remote control cars. They were able to do a lot of different things. And we've talked about this over many different reports on how they are able to use your device to spy on you. Now, since this came out, it looks like Samsung, well, they're studying the media reports, citing that they need to look in what is going on here. And they need to understand how the CIA was able to use their devices to spy on people. Now, I don't think the CIA was able to do this by themselves. They needed cooperation from the corporations, because most of the code and what they've been doing is already embedded in the chips. So Samsung is most likely covering themselves at this point. But we can see that all this time, the CIA, the NSA, they had the ability to listen in, read emails, to spy on every single person. Now do you understand why the FBI, the NSA didn't want people to have encryption? It wasn't that they were breaking encryption and trying to get your information. It was because everything was already open to them. And if something was encrypted like an email, well, they would get the encrypted email, but they wouldn't be able to open it because they wouldn't have the key and they wouldn't have the method. And this would be very difficult for them. And this is why they continually try to fight encryption. And of course, we know they already basically infiltrated certain encryption techniques, but not all of them. If you create them yourselves, or there are companies out there that will help you in creating encryption code. There are email systems that will allow you to encrypt your email, where the CIA, the NSA can't really get into. I mean, eventually, with supercomputers, they can probably do it, but they're not going to waste their time doing that. They want easy access, as we can see, but we can see what they've been trying to do all these years. Now, the other things that were in this Vault 7 showed us that the CIA, they had the ability to mimic foreign intelligence agencies by leaving electronic fingerprints, creating the false impression of foreign intrusion into computer networks. And basically, everything that we've been told and everything that we've been looked at needs to be questioned once again, because we can't really believe what they say now. Well, we never could, but all the corporate media headlines of Iran, Syria, North Korea, Russia, China, everyone hacking into our systems here in the United States, well, it looks like really they might not all be true, and most likely they're not. But there's another issue to all of this. If there is an open door to all these things, to your phones, to your TVs, to your devices, this allows backdoors for criminals. And it allows them to get in and see your information. So they're responsible for breaking security on all these devices. And what we're seeing right now is that, coming from the CIA, according to WikiLeaks, that they lost control of the majority of its hacking arsenal, including malware, viruses, trojans, weaponized zero-day exploits, malware remote control systems, and associated documentation. Now, I'm thinking they probably did this on purpose, where they're out there saying that they lost complete control, because if anything happens or anything should happen in the future, they can't be held responsible. Or even things in the past, because they can say, hey, it was stolen from us. We didn't do this. And when we look at all this, I mean, the CIA can pose as Russian hackers. They can recompile the code and say that, hey, it was Russia who did this. We see the fingerprint. Now, there are certain documents within here that tell you do's and don'ts when you're developing. And one of them says, hackers and code writers are warned, do not leave data in binary file that demonstrates CIA, U.S. government, or partner companies' involvement in the creation or use of the binary tool. So basically what they're saying is, when you're compiling a piece of malware, a virus, or anything, make sure there's no link back to the CIA. Make sure the fingerprint says Russia, China, and the others, whoever they're trying to set up, but make sure there's nothing else in there. Now, what's very interesting about all of this, where the Vault 7 documents were released, people have been looking at it. A lot of the alternative media is out there reporting on how the CIA has been spying on every single American in this country. The corporate media is saying that we don't know if this is real. I can't believe this. It can't be true. Where are all the activist groups out there protesting, saying that this is a violation of our rights? I mean, shouldn't we have college campuses saying, oh my God, the government has been spying on us? They can read our email. It is true. The documents are out there. There's nothing so far. Not even a peep. And that's what's amazing, because if we look at the Fourth Amendment, and we know that the CIA, the NSA, well, they have been spying on us, even the FBI. Because remember back when James Clapper was questioned, who was in charge of the NSA, and said, are you spying on the American people? He lied at first to Congress, and then he had to come clean saying yes. And this is when Obama stepped in and said, well, we're going to change things. We're going to create the USA Freedom Act. Well, looks like nothing's really changed. And everything they're doing is a violation of our rights. All these individuals should be arrested at this point. I mean, look at the Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. If you look at the Fifth Amendment, and I'm not talking the first part, I'm looking at the last line here. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Well, hasn't the CIA taken our personal property and use it and have used it for their benefit? Have we given them permission to do this? Have we been compensated for this? No, we have not. This is a complete violation of our rights. And we have to go back to what George Carlin said. He said, rights aren't rights if someone can take them away. They're privileges. That's all we've ever had in this country, is a bill of temporary privileges. And if you read the news, even badly, you know that every year the list gets shorter and shorter. Sooner or later, the people in this country are going to realize the government doesn't care about you or your children or your rights or your welfare or your safety. It's interested in its own power. That's the only thing. Keeping it and expanding it whenever possible. And he's absolutely right. Now, on paper, we are technically free. In reality, however, we're only as free as government official may allow. And people say, wait, what do you mean by this? Well, we think we live in a constitutional republic, governed by just laws created for our benefit. But when we look, we live in a dictatorship disguised as a democracy, where all that we own, all that we earn, all that we say and do, our very lives, well, it's controlled by government. If the government can control speech, it can control thought, and in turn, it can control the minds of the citizenry. What we have instead is regulated, controlled speech. We've been saying this, political correctness, and that's the whole other ballgame. Protest laws, free speech zones, bubble zones, trespass zones, anti-bullying legislation, zero tolerance policies, hate crime laws, and a host of other legalistic type of laws dreamed up by the politicians and prosecutors. Well, they corrode the core of freedom for our own good. That's what they tell us. I mean, how do you lock down a nation? How do you remove their freedom? You sow discontent and fear among the populace. You terrorize the people into believing that radicalized foreigners are preparing to invade. You teach them to be non-thinkers, Common Core, who passively accept whatever is told to them, whether it's delivered by the way of the corporate media or by the government handler. You acclimate them to a state of martial law, carried out by soldiers disguised as police officers, but bearing the weapons of war. You polarize them so they can never unite and stand united against the government, which we are seeing today. We see what the deep state is doing. They're paying, along with George Soros, paying for these protests, trying to get people involved, trying to make people take sides. We need to come together as a country. Our enemy is the government. I mean, we're coming to a crossroads. Either we gather together now and attempt to restore freedom or it will be lost. And we have to remember Thomas Jefferson, he said that we've given you this freedom, but you will have to fight for it once again. And from what we've been seeing from the CIA, what we've been seeing from all these different agencies, well, guess what? They're controlling us. We can see it from Vault 7. And I'm sure more information is going to be coming out. And it's just going to get worse. It's going to show us how we are not free at all. We just think we are. We're controlled. We're spied upon. Now, China is out there, and they are saying that the U.S. and North Korea, they are on track for a nuclear head-on collision. And China is proposing right now to diffuse the escalating tensions. Now, what they want is they want North Korea to stop their nuclear testing and firing missiles, and they want the United States to stop the provocative drills and to have talks with North Korea. Now, North Korea, if you remember this, they proposed this to the U.S. when Obama was in office. And the U.S. did not take them up on this. Instead, they provoked North Korea further. But this is the first time it was suggested that they do this during Trump. Now remember, Trump was going to meet with North Korea, but the deep state had other plans. So at this point, we see that the U.S., the deep state, the central bankers, they are the problem. North Korea extended a hand, an olive branch, saying, we would like to talk to you. And the U.S. would not listen. Because the deep state, the central bank, they want war. Talking is not going to give them war. Now, Iran is accusing the U.S. Navy of stirring tensions in the Persian Gulf. And a senior official in Iran's elite Revolutionary Guard is saying that a U.S. Navy ship crossing the Strait of Hormuz all of a sudden changed course and approached the Revolutionary Guard's boats within 550 meters, saying this is completely unprofessional. Now, we've seen this before. We've seen ships do this in the Black Sea, and all of a sudden there was an incident. We know this happened once before in the Strait of Hormuz, where they said, ooh, the Revolutionary Guard boats are getting very close to the U.S. boats, and the corporate media then spins the story. And what's happening here is they're purposely provoking Iran. They're trying to gin something up. Now remember, the United States is in their territory, and they're provoking them off of their coast. I mean, they're not here in the Gulf of Mexico, where Iran, just took their ships and they came very close to a U.S. ship. The U.S. is steering closer and closer to these vessels, trying to have something happen. It's called poking the country, one poke at a time. And I've given the example before about a bully walking down the hall where every day he pokes this other student, and after 27 pokes, the student can't take it anymore, and the student said, next time he walks down the hall, I'm going to hit him. Well, the bully comes down the hall, he's expecting a poke, and all of a sudden that student hits him. All the teachers see is that student hitting the bully. The bully's saying, we didn't do it. I didn't do anything. He came out of nowhere. This is what's happening right now. Now, Libya's Eastern Parliament is calling for elections next year, saying they do not accept the UN-backed government. They are out. We want an election where the people are going to elect their government. This is going to be a problem for the deep state, the central bankers. So most likely we're going to see an operation inside of Libya. And remember, most of these countries who are fighting and who want their government back, who want the puppet government out of their country, the U.S. is actually not fighting against the Islamic State. They're fighting against those who they call Al-Qaeda and some called Islamic State, but they're fighting against the people who don't want them there anymore. And what we're seeing in Iraq is about 400 servicemen of the Iraqi Special Forces. They've been trained by the U.S. forces in order to form the so-called Tiger Unit. Now, remember, this is part of the puppet government in Iraq, which the United States helped create. And this Tiger Unit is supposed to assassinate commanders of the Popular Mobilization Unit, also known as Al-Shabi. Their main task is to eliminate the PMU commanders, especially those who are opposed to the U.S. Army's presence in Iraq. At the same time, members of the Iraqi Parliament Security and Defense Commission, well, they're calling for an investigation of photos and videos showing U.S. planes dropping aid packages over the Islamic State-held regions. So we have two things happening right now. We have those individuals who don't want the U.S. in there. We have the Iraqi government scratching their head going, why is the U.S. dropping aid and food and arms to the Islamic State when we're supposed to be fighting them? And we can see right now there's an investigation going on because the United States government central bankers, they've been supporting the Islamic State all this time. And they don't want those who oppose the U.S. in Iraq to make a move to get them out or to take control of the government. And the U.S. government central bankers are having this problem in Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, Iraq, Lebanon, Libya. And we can see it's all falling apart, which has an effect on the petrodollar, which has an effect on the economy. Remember, they're mostly worried about the economy because the economy is everywhere. Now, what I mean by this is that they understand that, yes, people will not protest or riot because the CIA is spying. They won't protest or riot because of an election. They can't make people do things that they really don't want to do. They can try by having agent provocateurs. But if the economy comes down and people lose their jobs and they don't have money coming in and they can't pay their bills, they can't feed their families, well, this is when people will actually take to the streets. They understand this. This is why it's so important to them to change the narrative, to make sure that it's not blamed on them, because this affects everybody. And they know what would happen if they are to blame. People would take to the streets. They would go after them because people's wallets, their pocketbooks, are hit. They're not bringing in money. They can't buy food. They have no job. They have nothing to lose. This is what they're really afraid of. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.